Hi, everybody. Good morning / good afternoon. We're getting started a little bit on time today. And if this is your first time joining us, let us know in the chat box and put like a thumbs up or say where you're from. If you're joining us first time or if you're from wherever you're joining us from, let us know. Boston. Brandon, is it Brandon? Sorry, your name keeps cutting off here. We see Erin, Michaela, first time from Vancouver, nice. We have Andrea from the Dominican Republic, Melissa from Philadelphia. We were just there last month and had like a super short trip. It was such a good time.
So much fun.
We have Kaylee from Denver, Amber from Orange County, Jasmine from Austin. We're from Austin, so thanks for joining us. Cindy from Pasadena, Texas people. Yay, first timers. Awesome. First time from Dubai, although you live in New York. Oh my God, what time is it in Dubai? Thank you for joining. I'm pretty sure it's like super early, but thank you for joining us. We always have a lot of people from Australia mentioning that, you know, the time is not right, but we're at 12:30 Central Standard Time. So hopefully we'll have something that works for both like Australia time later down the road. We'll see. Ocean City, New Jersey, New York, 9:30 at night down there. Cool. Awesome. Yay. Well, we're going to wait for a few more people to join. But again, my name is Priscilla. I'm the Brand Partnerships Manager here at Planoly. And this is the first time we have Adriana joining us for a webinar.
Hi guys, I'm the Influencer Relations Lead here at Planoly. I'm so excited to talk to you guys today.
Yeah, we're going to be chatting about Instagram and Pinterest and basically getting you started on the right path when you're creating your content strategy on both visual platforms. But one of the main reasons why we're choosing this topic is because we're really excited to announce that we're going to be integrating Pinterest, a Pinterest planner within Planoly. So throughout the years, we've just been very specific to Instagram. Most recently, we've integrated Facebook. You can go ahead and post your content to Facebook if you auto schedule, but we're gonna go ahead and integrate Pinterest too. So if you're excited about that, let us know.
We're super excited.
It's gonna be coming in the next few months. So we're really excited about that. I'm gonna be teaching you guys a lot about Pinterest and how you can definitely use both platforms. So Erin says, thank God, I've been racking my brain trying to decide how to simplify my launch on Pinterest. Well, hopefully after this webinar, you'll feel a little bit more at ease, and you'll probably know how to like create your content a little bit better for both platforms. So we're really excited about this. So make sure to stay tuned. If you already signed up for this webinar, you're probably already on our newsletter. So we'll go ahead and announce that on our newsletter, on our blog, on social. So make sure to stay tuned. So we'll go ahead and wait for a few more people, but yeah, we'll get started. But one thing I definitely want to make sure is for any questions that you guys might have during the webinar, make sure that you drop them in I hope that I'm pointing the right one, this Q&A box here. Sometimes a lot of people will put their questions in the chat box. It's really easy for them to get lost. So if you put them in the chat box, we'll go ahead and try to answer them. Make sure to, if you can, put your Instagram handle. So if we don't get to your question, we'll try to answer it on Instagram. So make sure to put all your questions here in the chat box. And if anybody knows the answer to a question that you see or want to start a discussion on it during the webinar, you can go ahead and chime in on the questions that are being brought up within the Q&A. So really easy for everybody to interact while the webinar is going on. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. So give us 1 second. The screen will go black for a second, okay? So again, my name is Priscilla. I'm the Brand Partnerships Manager here at Planoly.
And I'm Adriana. I'm the Influencer Relations Lead here at Planoly.
And again, thank you so much for joining us. I know that you guys are probably really busy and have busy schedules, so thank you for taking the time to join us during this webinar. We'll make this very short and sweet and get straight into it. So again, we'll be going over how to win on both Pinterest and Instagram, and how to make sure that you're aligning both your platforms to make sure you're winning on both platforms. So why is setting a visual strategy so important for your brand? That's first things first, given that Instagram and Pinterest are such visual platforms. So number one, we do have a few tips to ensuring that you have a visual strategy that's cohesive throughout all platforms. This is more specific to Instagram and Pinterest, but whatever visual platform you're focusing on, you can apply these tips. So number one, you can make sure that it actually is symmetrical. So making sure that you see some cohesiveness coming from both brand or from both platforms, given whatever brand it is. You want to make sure that you do see some alignment, be it if the content's coming from Pinterest or Instagram. One thing I will definitely say is that you want to make sure that your content is it does have some type of variety. So you're not constantly posting the same content on Instagram as you would on Pinterest. You want to give it some variety. You want to make sure that, but at the end of the day, you want to make sure that it still looks like it's coming from one cohesive brand. Next, you want to make sure that it's authentic. So, of course, making sure that it shows that it's coming from one brand rather than you trying to copy another brand or another personality just because you really like how that one looks. Make sure that everything is defined by what you've set your brand standards to, and then it's actually authentic to the brand that you created. Because I feel like those are the things that people definitely pick up on once they see something that doesn't stick to what the brand that you've already created. People can definitely notice that, and it's very, very obvious. So make sure that it's actually authentic to the brand that you've created. Next, you want to make sure that it's engaging. So, of course, not just posting content because you have to. You want to make sure that you actually think it through and make sure that it's something that's going to not only just get the attention of your audience, but create some type of engagement. Of course, we're thinking about likes, we're thinking about comments, we're thinking about saves and shares, repins, reshares, all of that. You want to make sure that the content that you create is with the intent to actually build that engagement up. And then, of course, you want to make sure that it's creative. So thinking always outside of the box. Don't just stick to posting content because you think that it's okay, I need to post something today and it looks what my brand I think it looks. You want to make sure that it's actually creative, and of course building on that engagement. If it's creative and sticks outside of the box, you'll definitely get that engagement. And next, you want to make sure that it's inspiring. So with Pinterest especially, Instagram is very good for this, but Pinterest especially, we go to Pinterest for inspiration. So you want to make sure that your content is actually inspiring, that people will actually put it on their boards, that it's something that they'll look back to and be like, oh, okay, that's something that I'm inspired by. That's a look that I want to do, something like that. I want to do a hairdo like that, or I want to do a party that looks like that. Something that people are inspired by. So I want to make sure that it's always inspiring. And of course, you before you even start posting content, you want to make sure that you actually set a brand guideline for what your brand is. So setting what the fonts are, what the typefaces are, what the actual brand voice is. I think that's another really important thing. But then, of course, including the visuals. So making sure that you're actually defining what the brand colors are, what type of photography style it is, all those elements that you can hand over to a new social media manager or a new photographer, and every piece of content that's created will align with your brand rather than making it look like, oh, it's from a different creative team and it's not aligned. You want to make sure that those brand guidelines are set so that way everything that you create and post on social is cohesive. So next, we have some strategies to ensure that your platforms are set for success, starting off with Pinterest.
So we're going to talk about a few different ways that you can set yourself up for success when it comes to Pinterest. So first is claiming your profile. The most important thing that you can do when you're getting started on Pinterest is to claim your profile so that Pinterest recognizes your website and the pins that you're pinning back to their website. The next is to set your images correctly. In order for your images to really pop, you want to make sure that they're in landscape instead of portrait. That really makes it more visually appealing for the platform. Another way is using the right keywords for your copy and text on your pins. So when you're creating your pins, you really want to make sure that you're creating engaging, topics and wording and everything to really draw your audience into that pin and make them click through to see more. The next point is by linking your pins. You really want to make sure that you're tagging every brand and mentioning all the proper partners that you're working with on that content. Another important aspect is to have a call to action on your blog to link back to your pins on Pinterest. So for example, if you have a blog post that has a recipe or something that you want your followers and readers to share on Pinterest, you can comment and say something on your blog post like, bookmark this and save it later on Pinterest to go back and try this recipe. Another way is by doing reshares and repins. This is a great way to gain visibility on Pinterest by sharing others' content that you really, really love seeing. And then in exchange for that, you're making other connections with pinners on the platform. And next is understanding your insights and analytics on Pinterest. This is really vital whenever you're going to plan future content, and so you can see which pins are performing the best and which ones aren't, and so you can map out your content strategy that way. So the next is planning for future content. Pinterest is really great when it comes to creating visual mood boards and gaining inspiration from other accounts or other blogs that you really love, and that in turn can help you with the content that you're working on for future blog posts. And lastly, there's Pinterest Newsroom and Pin Sites. Pinterest Newsroom is great, an awesome resource to look into whenever you're planning content and just strategizing for the months ahead with Pinterest. There are several great tips that Pinterest shares on that website for you to look into. It's just newsroom.pinterest.com, and you can also look at insights on there to see which pins are performing the most and which keywords are great to include within your pins.
And then moving on to Instagram. So the first thing you want to do when you get started with Instagram is switch over to a business or creator account. A creator account is a new feature that Instagram recently released about a few months ago for content creators, so you don't have to be a business account. And I know that this is like a rumor that everybody talks about, that like, what if I switch over to a business account? Like my engagement's gonna go down. That is a myth. That is a rumor. That is not true. I think the one main thing is making sure that you're actually keeping up with engaging content. And all the insights that you get from being a business account are just gonna help you out so much. So that's the first step you want to go ahead and take when you're actually strategizing on Instagram, because you want those insights. So switch over to a business or creator profile. Next, you want to make sure that your caption is engaging and you're using the right hashtags. So we do have a few other webinars on our YouTube channel that you can definitely check out. I've talked about, creating the right hashtags and how to make how to create an engaging caption and engaging content. So definitely check that out. But in a brief note, definitely make sure your captions are always engaging, have a call to action like you would in Pinterest, and use the right hashtags. So you don't want to use all 30, you don't have to use all 30 hashtags. You're more than welcome to, and that's the limit that Instagram allows. But you want to make sure that you're using the right hashtags that are specific to your niche. So don't use hashtag Instagood, Instafam, like all those hashtags that have like billions of uses. Think of it like this. If you're using those hashtags, you're just throwing your content into a pool of millions of content that's not specific to anything or that's relevant to your specific niche. And it's just going to get overseen. Like it's never going to get touched. So make sure that you're actually engaging with the right hashtags, engaging communities. So that way you're actually getting your content in the presence of really engaged niches and communities. Next, you want to ensure that your images are on brand and that they're authentic to what you've defined for your brand. As I mentioned earlier, everything has to be cohesive. So whatever you go ahead and put on Pinterest or Instagram, Facebook, Tumblr, if you still use it, it all looks cohesive and authentic to the brand that you've set. And then, of course, having a call to action, tagging locations, always tag location. And we actually do have that feature on Planoly. You can tag locations, tag people that you've collaborated with, or tag brands that you want to feature within your content. always make sure to maximize the use of all the features that you can do when you're uploading content, location tags, people tags, and then also make sure you have a link in bio that your people, like your followers, can actually go back to your content and learn a little bit more and click the link in bio. Or if you're using stories, always have a swipe up feature or just like the tap to see more. So definitely always maximize your use of that. And that also goes for using anything like the engagement stickers within stories, like the questions, the polls, anything that you can use in stories. Definitely make the best use out of that, so that way you can make your content even more engaging. And next, engaging with your audience. So of course, we're always creating this content that we hope gets all this engagement, but you're not going to get that engagement unless you actually engage with your audience. Social media is a two-way street, so unless you put that time with your audience, you're not going to get that engagement. So if you're switching to a business account and think that you're just going to post content and you're not seeing engagement because you're not engaging, then that's the problem right there. You have to engage and put in the time. So definitely take time to engage with your audience. And next, of course, is planning your content. This is kind of like a given that we're Planoly, but you're gonna have to plan out your content and make your life a little bit easier. So that way you're not only planning to post content for the week, but you're actually planning with intention. And you can actually, once you see everything on your grid, you can look back and say, oh, this actually doesn't go with my grid. This doesn't go with a brand that I've established. So definitely plan ahead with time, and you'll see that you can actually create better content the more you plan. Next, of course, is understanding your analytics. So if you do have a business account or a creator account, you'll be seeing all of your analytics or insights. You can even see it through Planoly, but even the Instagram insights that you get through your business account gives you so much information. So really get familiar with those, get comfortable with the data, and see how you can actually improve your content given the stats that you have.
So next is creating success for your visual content through a timeline.
So first things first, you want to make sure that you're setting a profile for your content. So of course with Instagram, you're going to go ahead and make sure that you're setting up a business or creator account, but with Pinterest, you do have the other options.
Yes, and claiming your profile is what I touched on earlier. It's super important, especially if you want your website to be recognized from Pinterest and all the pins that you're sharing. The next is to set clear objectives. You really want to make sure that you're setting great guidelines as to what content you want to create in the months to come, and this will help you prep for everything that you're working on with brands or future collaborations.
And I think that also goes for what you want to get out of your content. So does that mean that you actually want to drive sales with your content? Do you want to get more followers with your content? Do you want more newsletter subscribers? Do you want to drive more traffic to your website? Set what those objectives are, and then from there, we'll go on to our next step, which is defining KPIs. So once you've set those objectives for what you want your content to do, then you can actually set key performance indicators that let you know that your content's actually doing the right thing. Not so much of just saying, oh, okay, like my content is helping me get more followers, but how are you actually putting that objective and that key performance indicator into an actual number that you can track and ensure that, okay, in Q3, I actually got a 10% increase in my following on Pinterest and Instagram because I did cross promotion. So definitely define what those numbers are so you can ensure that your content is actually working for each other and making your job a little bit easier rather than trying to put in, okay, this is what I'm doing for Instagram, this is what I'm doing for Pinterest, and just making it all work together.
All right, step 4 is establishing a visual identity and guidelines. Here is where you really make sure that your brand is properly portrayed on your platforms so that your aesthetics align and everything is visually cohesive to your brand and to who you are and what you want it to say. Step 5 is ideate and create creative content tailored to Pinterest and to Instagram. So when you're creating content for Pinterest and Instagram, you always want to vary it up a little bit and do different things on each platform. So if you're resharing something from Pinterest on Instagram, you can change up your caption to align more with your audience on Instagram. And if you're sharing something on Instagram to Pinterest, you can change up your caption as well and link to brands that you've worked with and things that you want to give a clearer picture or shout out to on Pinterest.
So step 6 is execute. So this is where you actually put your brainstorm, those KPIs that you've set, the visual brand guideline, actually get all that content that you've already batch created and actually go ahead and put it on Instagram and Pinterest. So this is where you're already putting everything live. You see how it's going to perform. You're actually engaging after you post. And you're actually also tracking how everything is going to be performing, because that's also the most important thing, which leads us into step 7 is measuring. So once you post content, it doesn't end there, and that doesn't end with engaging either. You actually want to measure and track those KPIs that you've already set. And I definitely recommend everybody go to the Planoly blog and go to our search bar, type in KPI. We actually have a KPI spreadsheet, that you can actually go ahead and tailor to the KPIs that you've set. We already have a few calculations and automatic measurements on there, but you can go ahead and track anything from likes, shares, comments, whatever it may be that you're actually tracking within your KPIs. You can go ahead and add that into that KPI sheet. So keep track of all the content that's performing well for you. And this is where having a business account or having a creator account, or actually, creating a Pinterest business account helps you, because you can actually see all those insights and actually measure and see how it's actually working for you. And next, now that you have your actual, measurements and everything, you want to go on to step 8, which is optimize. So when you're optimizing your content, you're using all that measurement data and seeing, okay, well, I thought that this piece of content was actually going to do really well, and it actually tanked. Good to know. You don't want to get all excited about the best performing content. That's great that you got a lot of engagement on a certain piece of content, but also pay attention to the ones that didn't do so well. Those are great indicators to let you know, okay, I should not be using this type of content anymore. I shouldn't create anything like this because it just doesn't get good engagement. And go ahead and build on that. Use, your pros and cons from your content performance and see, okay, this didn't do so well, this did great. Go ahead and build on the best performing ones and use the ones that didn't do so well and have that as a stash. It's like, okay, never do this again. So always optimizing your content moving forward. And then last step is repeating steps 2 through 8. So now that you've optimized, you want to use all that data to help you go ahead and set new objectives, set new KPIs to let you know that you're right on track. Go ahead and establish, if you do need to tweak certain visual identity and guideline standards, go ahead and do that with your data that you have. Create better content and go ahead and execute it and do it all over again. It's a constant cycle. That's what social media is. But I think with these steps, it will definitely help. And I'll actually put a link with the next email that you guys get tomorrow. And this is all taken, some of these tips are taken from a General Assembly worksheet that is super, super helpful that I've used within my own content strategies, but it is a pretty extensive workbook. I'm very surprised that it's actually free, but General Assembly has actually done a great job with outlining this and making sure that you're kind of, I think it's called the Objective First Framework, and it'll help your content strategy moving forward magnificently. So given that this is Instagram and Pinterest, of course, these platforms are very visual, but it's not just that. This is a matter of also taking the steps to step up your social channels, ideate content, activate your audiences, and analyze everything to ensure that it's all set for success to work together. So it's very data driven at the end of the day. Like you had a flat lay with pretty peonies, and it was a coffee shop shot with like a coffee mug, and you had everything for a perfect flat lay. It was pretty, but it did great. What was it that made it do great? Because you've actually set all these standards for your brand, and it actually aligns with your audience. So because you've done that, now you've actually had engaging content. So go ahead and make sure that it's beyond just being visually aligned. It's actually much more deeper than that based on the points that we've talked on.
So now we're going to talk about cross-promotion on Pinterest and Instagram. So first is Instagram to Pinterest.
So for both of your platforms to work together, you want to make sure that you're actually cross-promoting and your content isn't just living on one platform versus the other, because at the end of the day, your audience on Pinterest might not be the same audience that you have on Instagram. Sure, they might mean this like same demo, but sometimes they might just not follow you on either platform. So you have to go ahead and introduce your content to your other audience on other platforms and see how they like it. So first, you want to repurpose your best performing images for Pinterest and maximize with top performing keywords. So the best thing about Pinterest, and this is like the one thing that everybody should kind of think about Pinterest rather than just being a social media network. So Pinterest is actually a search engine. Think of like YouTube, how it's a really not just a social media network for you to upload YouTube videos, but it's also kind of like the second biggest search engine next to Google search. So that's the same thing with Pinterest. You want to make sure that you're actually tying in your content with great keywords that is actually going to make your content discoverable. So go ahead and repurpose your content from Instagram. Make it a little bit more tailored to Pinterest, if that means that you need to create it into a vertical post rather than just a square. Never post anything horizontal on Pinterest. That's actually kind of frowned upon, I think, within like the Pinterest world. So you want to make sure that it's actually a piece of content that's actually going to be a little bit more easy on the eyes when people are scrolling through the app. And of course, make it visually appealing, but also add the right keywords, with top keywords that you can definitely find within the Pin Sites page or the Pinterest newsroom. Of course, make sure that your Instagram posts are evergreen and repost during peak season. So the one great thing about the Pinterest newsroom is that you can see what are going to be trending topics throughout the year. So of course, holidays are a big thing for Pinterest. So if you see that there's something that aligns with a certain time of year or a certain holiday, repurpose that content. The one great thing about Pinterest is like content there is evergreen. That's like the one main difference between Instagram and Pinterest. I feel like Instagram is very timely, like specific to the time that you post, but Pinterest, you can find content from years ago. And for example, I posted a pin not too long ago, a long time ago actually, and for some reason, all of a sudden I got like so many reshares and repins just in the last 2 months. I don't know how it happened, but somebody just like repinned it. All these other people repinned it. So your content is meant to live forever. So make sure to maximize on the evergreen content that you have on your Instagram and repurpose it for Pinterest and see how it can benefit you and definitely drive more traffic back to your site, and help you meet the KPIs and goals that you've set. And of course, repurpose your instructional content on Instagram and make them into visual tutorials or infographics on Pinterest. Pinterest is big on infographics, so if you do have a tutorial that you've done on stories or a tutorial that you've had done on your grid, even on IGTV, whatever it may be, if it's a video, try to find a way that you can go ahead and make that into an infographic that people can go ahead and pin on their boards, reshare, whatever it may be. And make sure that, of course, it's evergreen and something that's gonna, stand the test of time and actually benefit you in the long run. So just a few ways for you to repurpose your Instagram content to Pinterest.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about repurposing your Pinterest content to Instagram and some of my favorite ways to do so, which I think would be great for you to try out and see how it works for you. So when you've started to curate a great Pinterest and you have all of this content that you're repinning and sharing and pulling back from your website, now it's great to show that on Instagram as well. And a good way to do that is through Instagram stories. So the first is Stories Inspiration Roundup and creating a highlight with stories linking back to your Pinterest. So for example, you can take a few screenshots of your favorite inspiration on Pinterest and blogs that you're loving, recipes you're loving, home inspo you're loving, and share it back on Pinterest to link to those websites and to link back to your Pinterest as well. The next is to share your favorite people and boards to follow on Pinterest. This one is fun as well. You can also screenshot your favorite boards and your favorite people to follow on Pinterest and the things that they're posting so that you can give them a shout out on Instagram stories and also bring back more engagement to your Pinterest profile. And lastly, you can share your own boards for your audience to get inspiration from you. So if you want your audience on Instagram to see everything that you're pinning on Pinterest, you can also take screenshots of your Pinterest boards, pins that you're currently working on or that you've recently posted, and link those on Instagram stories to create engagement that ties all the way back to your Pinterest. So then you're creating this cohesive brand and feed with your Instagram followers and your Pinterest followers, and it's bringing it all together into one.
So here's a few more ways that you can continue elevating your content. Of course, we have all these tips, but these are just a few more ways. And number one is you always want to be so comfy and cozy with your analytics. I know numbers can be a little bit scary, especially if it's not the numbers that you necessarily want. And that's totally fine, because when we're getting started, our numbers aren't always going to be what we aim for. That's fine. It's just a learning curve for us. The more that we start creating more content, the more that we actually optimize and actually keep tracking those KPIs, that's the more that we'll actually continue elevating our content. But with your business account or creator account, you need to dive into your insights and learn from your content to see what is performing and what isn't, what's performing well and what isn't, along with understanding your demographics and catering to them. So one key thing is that with Instagram, you can see who your audience is based on gender. You can see based on location, and even see when they're most active. We always get this question: what is the best time to post? And you can actually see that in your business insights if you do have a business account, and you'll see based on day to day and what time when your audience is most active, for the best time for you to post. So if you had that question, that's the answer, because I'm sure I get this question all the time in every webinar. But while your overall audience will generally fall under the same demographic and target market, your audience will digest content differently on Instagram versus Pinterest. So make sure that you always tailor the content differently to whatever platform it may be. So look at your insights on Pinterest, look at your insights on Instagram, and make sure, okay, that post that I did so well on Instagram didn't do so well on Pinterest. And that's fine, because that'll let you know, okay, the audience on Pinterest is just, taking content a little bit differently. They still love your brand. They still love the brand, aesthetics that you defined for it, but they just prefer a different type of content. So make sure that you pay attention to those like key indicators and tailor your content a little bit better for both platforms. So a few keys to pay attention to: number one being location, so where your audience is actually located, and you can see the top 5 cities in your Instagram insights for wherever your audience is at. Next, you want to look at age range. So where does your audience age range? And I think you can see 5 different age ranges within insights as well. So make sure that you're taking those age ranges into consideration and see, okay, my audience is mainly Gen Z or mainly millennials, both different demographics that digest content very differently. So make sure that you're actually paying attention to that. Next, you want to make sure to look at gender. So what's the percentage between male and female audience members that are following you? And of course, content performance and content interactions and engagement that you get from both your content on your feed and your stories. So if you have a business account, you can actually see the engagement from each of your posts if you look at your content within your feed. So you can see everything, of course, from likes and comments, which is a given, but we don't want to look at vanity metrics that much. You want to make sure that you're looking at how many people are saving your content. That's a big indicator, which is kind of similar to Pinterest repins and actually people pinning things to their board. So you want to look at saves and of course shares, because if people are sharing your content, that means they find some value in it that they can go ahead and share with the community. So if you see that your content, sure, you can look at the likes and comments and think okay, that's a great engagement, I'm gonna go ahead and do that again. But definitely look at the saves and shares. That's the content that you definitely want to go ahead and maximize on, because it's information that people actually want, not rather than just a pretty picture. It's something that's useful, something that's resourceful. So definitely look at that when you're looking at your insights. And of course, like I mentioned, saves and shares. So.
Yep. Okay, and just how you can look at your insights on Instagram, you can also do the same thing on Pinterest. With a Pinterest business account, you have the ability to see your analytics and check on how your posts are doing with an overview of your entire Pinterest or an audience insight page. With an overview, it shows you everything from which pins are performing the best to which blog posts are getting the most action, which links you've shared are doing the best, which images are getting repinned the most. And then on audience insights, you can kind of get a better look into your audience and their demographic, where they're located, and what they are sharing on their platforms as well. So key things to pay attention to on Pinterest and your insights are top pins. This is where you can see which pins are performing the best and which content is getting the most engagement, so you can continue to create content that's centered around pins similar to those. The next is engagement, which we just touched on, and making sure that you are creating content that's getting the most engagement and seeing which ones are circling back and being reshared the most. Another one is to look at link clicks and seeing how many clicks you're getting on these pins that you're sharing, which links are getting the most clicks, and what types of articles or things on your website your readers are really enjoying. And next is saves and seeing what your followers on Pinterest are really enjoying saving on your Pinterest board and what they like to see from you. Okay, and lastly is close-ups, and here is where you can really dive into your analytics and get a great overview as to the content that you want to share and prep for it in future months to come.
So with Pinterest and Instagram, not only do you want to make sure that those both platforms work cohesively, but you also want to make sure that you're drawing inspiration from both platforms too. So if you're trying, kind of like hitting a creative block on Instagram, look to Pinterest and see what content you can go ahead and create, or even future collaborations that you can do based on the people that you follow. And the same goes vice versa with Pinterest. If you're looking on, content to create that you kind of hit a wall, use Instagram for inspiration, for visual techniques, and see, how Pinterest and Instagram can be valuable to each other, because you don't want to silo them and be like, okay, no, Instagram is going to be its own thing and Pinterest is going to be its own thing. No, all of your social channels should always work cohesively. So whether it's campaigns, imagery, writing, you can utilize both platforms for endless inspiration. So definitely use them for the best benefit. That's going to make your life easier, especially when creating content, because content creating on social media is not that easy as people think it is. But we're here to help them make your content strategy planning a little bit better. So now we're going to go ahead and hop on over to the Q&A box. If you dropped your question, we'll go ahead and answer it, but we're going to switch really quick to the live view. But if you dropped your questions in the Q&A box, make sure you put them in the Q&A box and we'll go ahead and answer them right now.
Okay. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Ann. 1 second. So I'm seeing a lot of questions already. And I saw, Joe, you added a question if this is going to be on a replay. Yes, we are going to be putting up a replay on Friday. It won't be as choppy as it was. Sorry about that. I know the technical issues, but we're trying to do a new format where we're trying to make this look even better for you guys. So yes, Friday on our YouTube, make sure to subscribe to youtube.com/Planoly. We'll have all of our webinars are there the Friday after every Tuesday that we do these webinars every month. So make sure to subscribe and you will see it Friday or anytime you want to see it. So we had a question from Orion. Any tips on creating a brand board while still encouraging UGC, user-generated content? Any tips for editing or curating user-generated content to get a consistent look? So for me, I mean, you want to set your board to how you, or not your board, but essentially your brand guide for what inspires your brand. So this is where Pinterest can come in really helpful to even set up your brand guidelines. So if you are inspired, for example, are trying to look for the type of aesthetic that you want to create for your brand, pull examples from Pinterest and create, even the examples that you pull can be user-generated content, just to set the mood and set the vibe of what you want your brand to be. A really good example of brands that do this is Create and Cultivate. BeautyCon, they do a lot of user-generated content, and one main thing with user-generated content is that you want to encourage your audience to create content for you, not essentially for you, but related to your brand. So of course, Create and Cultivate encourages everybody to create content around the hashtag Create Cultivate hashtag. Same with BeautyCon. And I only mention them because I used to work there doing social media. So I definitely dabbled in user-generated content, because a lot of the time we would do our own content, but then we wanted to include our audiences and make them feel a little bit more included in the content conversation. So definitely, set what the guidelines are, set the rules for what that, like, your user-generated content is. So of course, has to be high res, has to fit these certain colors. If you're, for example, Planoly is a great example. We do include a lot of user-generated content. So anytime that our grid is following a certain color within the feed, okay, we need to find a piece of content that sticks to like a pink hue, that's very clean and feminine. You have to set these characteristics for what that user-generated content is, and then that way you can go ahead and include it into your Planoly grid, see how it looks before you actually post it on Instagram, and then from there you can go ahead and start building more content, creating more content that's inspired by that user-generated content, and also, of course, including your audience in the content conversation always, which always makes them feel special. Glossier does this so much. Away does this so much because they want to, like, their brands are inspired by the people that purchase their products rather than the other way around. So, okay. Jasmine asked, any tips on creating a social media plan that encaptures your entire nonprofit? There are so many incredible things the nonprofit I work for does, and I don't know how to highlight all of it. So this is still very new for us because we focus more on influencers and like brands, small businesses, but we definitely want to touch on nonprofits. For me, a big nonprofit that I love to follow, nonprofits that I love to follow are museums. Museums fall under the nonprofit category, and a lot of them really know how to amplify their social media strategy. So you gave us a really great idea on creating a case study on museums. So we're going to be doing a little bit of research for you, but I would definitely go ahead and follow them and see maybe LACMA in LA or the Met, even over here in Austin, the Blanton. A lot of these museums really have awesome content strategies that are not just showing the artwork within their establishments, but are kind of also showing how the community can get involved within the nonprofits as well. So definitely take a look at those and see how you can get inspired, but stay tuned. We'll definitely be giving tips on how to amplify your social media with a nonprofit and doing a case study of our own. So I think there was a Pinterest question, right?
Yes, let's see.
Is it Amber?
Okay, Amber asked, you said tips, thoughts on turning your personal Pinterest into your business Pinterest. My brand is an extension of myself, art, design, digital marketing. It says you plan to hide your personal boards, but you think it could be beneficial to keep boards of inspiration and sharing work and blogs as a sort of digital portfolio. I can speak to this myself. So I have a blog also, and it's part my business Pinterest and part my personal Pinterest. And I think the great thing about doing it that way is that you can integrate different parts of your personal life and then your work life into your Pinterest page. So it shows your audience everything that you're kind of doing, and they can find a way to engage with you on another level because they're getting to see more about who you are and what you love and what inspires you. And so I think that would be the best way to transition into a business Pinterest, is to still keep those aspects of your personal side and let that shine through as well.
And I think this goes also for Instagram. I think a lot of people think, oh, because my brand is a brand, I need to show how professional it is. But the one thing, and I know this is such a diluted word within social media, people love authenticity. So people want to see like the behind the scenes of everything, the heart of everything. So if you can find a way to really put that into your social media strategy and kind of highlight it in a way that will make your audience feel a little bit more engaged with you, more relatable, then by all means, go ahead and do it. I don't think it's anything that's going to hurt you. As long as it's not like divisive, then that's a whole other story. But unless like you're catering to that niche, then okay, cool. But yeah, always include like your personal taste. That's what makes you unique and like makes you to your niche. Those like specific elements of what makes you you. So, okay, Brian asked, thoughts on creating engaging content that is from many different creative aesthetics, agency life, hard to narrow into a specific niche. Oh man, I know this. I get this question so much. It's really hard. I think you have to be so picky on creating that like unique, or not unique, but like cohesive look for, especially if you're using different creative aesthetics. We have a lot of wedding, I think it's like wedding venues that sometimes we'll have different photographers, and all these photographers have different, styling and shooting aesthetics, and it doesn't really align. So you try to find and see like what the common thread is between certain pieces of content. Another way to really do this, and I've seen like even tattoo artists do this. I know it's like a very different niche, but they even like something as simple as like creating oh my god, I wish I knew the handle of this tattoo artist, but she has different tattoo artists in her studio. So all of the tattoo artists have different styles. Some have just black and white, or like just black tattoos, or they do like very vibrant colors. But the one thing that she does to make her feed look very cohesive is to put a round filter over the photo. So when you scroll over her feed, it's just very like cohesive. It looks very, you know, it's coming from that Instagram rather than, a bunch of different photos. So something as very simple as like a border would make a difference, just to make sure that it looks cohesive on Instagram. But especially with Pinterest, I think you have to be really picky on what you're going to be posting. But if something, that's why boards are so great, because if there's like certain colors or aesthetics that don't fit one board, then you can create a board for that. That's the really great thing with Pinterest, because you don't have to feel tied down to a certain thing. Like with Pinterest, I have a board that's very minimalist, like for like outfits that I like that are just strictly black and white. But then I'll have another board for outfits that are a little bit more colorful and have like certain color hues. Some for like very simple makeup looks, and others that are like crazy makeup looks. Some with like simple nail colors, and others that are just like a bunch of crazy nail designs. So with Pinterest, you have a little bit more, how would I say it? You have more room to like be creative and put content that doesn't really align with just one specific aesthetic. So I hope that helps. Next question.
It looks like Jules asked, if I have linked Etsy products to my Pinterest account after they sell, should I move them to a sold on Etsy board or leave them in the regular content board? That's a great question. So if you, I guess, are wanting to separate what your customers are really purchasing and going through, then maybe do separate boards so that they have a better visual as to what you have available. If it's a product that you probably won't be bringing back again, then that's a great way to highlight that it's no longer available. The more streamlined you can make your boards on Pinterest, the better. It makes it easier for your followers to see where everything is and what buckets you have for each item. And I think that's a really, really great idea.
Yeah, and I think another thing too, because given that Pinterest is a search engine, so if there is like a product that you no longer have available, make sure to put that within the caption. So I might not find your board, but I might find the image and I might want to buy it. But if it like I go to the link and I see that it's not available, then that's kind of like discouraging. So make sure that it's notable that you don't have it for sale, but you have other products that are similar that you can shop from. I think just trying to lead more back to your site so people don't feel like, oh, I thought I was going to buy this and it's not here. Okay, I'm just going to X out. But if you can encourage them to see more products that are similar to what's not available anymore, then I think that's a really good way to lead more sales. So cool. Lauren asked, I have a blog and a newsletter. What is the best way to post them to Pinterest? I think with a blog, it's really like good, right?
Yeah, I think highlighting it on your blog and maybe with an infographic as well, and always linking back to sign up links for your newsletter is great, because you can drop that sign up link in Pinterest also and just share like a little newsletter graphic or a call to action to your blog readers or website readers, and they can like go back in there and sign up for your newsletter.
Another person that's really good to look at for inspiration is Jules from Own the City. So she has a weekly newsletter that she sends out that drives to her blog. And I think it was like last week, she put out a blog post about how to organize your fridge. And from the newsletter, I went to her blog post on her site. And once you scroll down, there's a graphic for you to pin to Pinterest. So that's kind of a really good flow, like newsletter, blog to Pinterest. So that way I can reference, like save that and reference it for whenever. Because I mean, on newsletter, like emails, I'm reading an email and I'm probably hardly ever going to look back at it. But if I can go ahead and save it to Pinterest, then even better. So using that flow works really well. I thought that was a really great way of her doing that. Okay. We have a question on how to convince people to do shout out trades for free. Most people just read my message and leave it on seen or don't even bother opening my message. I feel like you can answer to this.
I feel like with any collaboration, it's always a two-way street. So the more you can make it something that you're giving back to that person, the better. As long as it becomes like a really well formed like partnership and something that they can gain from the partnership, as well as something you can gain. That's the best way to structure a trade, or kind of putting that on the table. It is hard with a lot of things, and I know if you're working with influencers, a lot of them are wanting to be paid for a lot of their work. So if you can kind of form that partnership from the beginning in the hopes of landing something larger later with them, I think that's the best way to approach it.
Yeah. One of my friends, she's in social media, works a lot with influencers. So one great tactic that she uses is that she'll send out an email and kind of like a kit of what she would want, why she would want to work with an influencer, and what she would want from the influencer. And if they ask for, usually people don't answer emails because they just want to see a price point. They want to see how much you're going to pay me for this. So I think being upfront and just saying, well, this isn't for free. It is, if it is successful, this is something that we can go ahead and pay you down the road because we would like to do a long-term partnership. If you're going to be doing any influencer marketing, make sure that it's long-term. Any one-off partnerships don't really have any type of longevity, and you want to amplify their audience. And usually you have to kind of show yourself to a person or a potential customer seven times before they actually consider buying your product or actually buy it. So if you're just doing a one-time sponsored post and then that's it, don't expect any sales from that. Influencer marketing is not an overnight thing. A lot of people have that misconception. It's not, it's a long-term thing. So make sure that you're investing in long-term partnerships, and then you'll see the ROI come back. But it is something that you have to invest in, because if you're investing in Instagram ads, invest in influencers. Influencers, like, this is their job, so we have to get paid. I want to say that. So let's pay our influencers. Cool. We'll answer a few more questions. We have 7 more minutes, and we're trying to like narrow these webinars down to 30 minutes and then have like 30 minutes for Q&A. So yeah, okay.
Let's see.
Michael asked, I may have misheard, but in the beginning, did you say that you use landscape on Pinterest? Okay, yeah, sorry. I'm sorry if that was confusing, but never use landscape on Pinterest. So when you're looking on Pinterest, when you're scrolling, most of the photos are vertical, like so. Sorry, trying to be like a beauty blogger. So all these photos are vertical. Sorry, I wish I could, maybe I need to bring down my brightness. But all these photos are vertical, if not square, or a video ad if you're a brand. This one's vertical, but that's an ad. I don't like how it takes up the entire screen, but all content is either square or vertical, and that's how you want to optimize for mobile anytime you're creating content. So if you're doing like a horizontal photo, imagine this. Oh my goodness, that's terrible. Okay, imagine it being half of this photo. Your photo is going to be so small that people aren't going to really even see it or understand what's in it. So make sure, yeah, it's probably, these are actually category tags, but they'll probably be this small. You don't want your content to be this small. This is just a category button within Pinterest, but you want your content to try to take up as much space as possible as you're scrolling through. So definitely only post in vertical or square, never landscape. So hopefully that clears that up.
Let's see.
Let's see. Oh, and thank you for everybody for putting in your handles. I saw somebody mentioned, can everybody network? So you can find us at Planoly and at Stories Edit. My handle is @Code of Conduct with all Ks. Adriana's.
And I am at Adriana Sutliff, so it's just one N and Sutliff.
So we'll put card with our handles and everything, so you can contact us. But let's answer one more question. Okay, are brands and companies searching Pinterest for influencers? Will Pinterest drive more likes to the content once Instagram decides to remove the option to see likes? That's a good question. Let me repeat it one more time. Are brands and companies searching Pinterest for influencers? Yes. So Pinterest has very specific influencers, and sometimes influencers that aren't as big on Instagram are massive on Pinterest. A great example is at aww.sam. She is a great DIY, like retro 60s influencer. She does a lot of like really great Halloween costumes, and her Pinterest blew up because of that. I think she has over 1 million followers on Pinterest, probably way beyond that. And on Instagram, I think she's below 1 million. So Pinterest, you can grow your niches there even bigger than Pinterest, because Pinterest is, while it is still like smaller than Instagram, people are much more dedicated on it. So yes, people are still looking for influencers on Pinterest. And will Pinterest drive more likes to the content once Instagram decides to remove the option to see likes? Honestly, I'm not sure. And the whole thing with the likes on Instagram, it's still being beta tested. I think last week or 2 weeks ago, they launched it out to 6 other countries. We do have a news post of that on the Planoly blog, so make sure to read that. But again, it's still all in beta. Like people even in Canada are seeing it, and like one day, and then the other day they're not seeing it. So I honestly don't know what Instagram is going to be doing about the likes. I don't think Pinterest is going to be driving, just because they're both so different platforms that I don't. And Pinterest works with Instagram in a way, because you do link your Instagram to Pinterest. So I'm honestly not too sure.
Yeah, that's hard. I'm not too sure about that one either.
But I mean, I would say continue building your presence on Instagram as you would, but also continue building on Pinterest. I think we have to diversify our platforms. And if we're building our business on Instagram, let's try to find another platform that really works for us. That's why we're going to Pinterest as well. I don't know if it was just like breaking news this morning that Instagram had shut down like dozens of meme accounts and these meme accounts were essentially influencers. People had built their business off of these meme accounts, and Instagram just shut them down. So it's a little scary. Make sure that you diversify your platform. So don't just stick to Instagram. Create a newsletter, Pinterest, blog, any other platforms that you see are up on the rise that are relevant to your niche. If TikTok's your thing, cool, get on TikTok. But yeah, definitely diversify your platforms. So, okay, let's see. I think, are those all the questions? I think you can, right? On that one?
I think you used to. I don't know if you can.
Okay. We'll double check on that one. Oh, I like this question. Any tips for commercial interior design company on growing your followers? Commercial is so different than residential. There's actually one brand out of LA that does this, and they've like kind of built up their following this way. I forgot their name. Oh my goodness, I forgot their name. But they built out the platform in LA, also Row downtown LA, and they basically, any of the work that they've done beforehand, they've kind of built those platforms for those locations / developments, and have shown the behind the scenes while always driving back to the main developer / interior designer. So definitely try to link yourself. So make sure that whatever project you're working on does have an Instagram account, and that way you can go ahead and any of the behind the scenes, you're linking to that account, and that account is linking back to you. Go ahead and look. I forgot the name of the design firm that did this, but a great example, Row downtown LA and the platform. Culver City are great examples of how they did this. If you look back at their Instagram accounts, they showed all the behind the scenes and always tagged their interior designer to give credit where credit's due. And this is how like these interior designers were able to grow and do tons of other projects around downtown LA. So I feel like as long as you're making sure that you're getting those, like the collaborations that you're working for are actually working for you in social rather than you just creating the content for yourself, that's the only way that you can really grow. So cool. All right, guys, we're at the 30 mark. So any other questions that we weren't able to answer, let me put up, 1 second. Let me put up our, yeah, okay. I'm gonna put up the sky. I hope this works. Oh, sorry, I'm gonna put up our email and everything. Okay, that's not showing. Okay, awesome. So you can go ahead and if you have any questions, feel free to email me at priscilla@planoly.com. We also have Adriana's email here, but of course, follow us at Planoly and at Stories Edit, our newest app that we just launched in March. And like I mentioned, we are going to be integrating Pinterest to Planoly as a Pinterest planner, sorry, in the coming months. So make sure to stay tuned for that. We'll be announcing that and giving you like a few hints here and there of how that's going to come out, but we're really, really excited for that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And make sure to like leave your handles for any questions that we may have not answered. I will be sending out a email tomorrow, including the links that I had mentioned. Of course, the KPI link that I actually did, Adriana put in within the chat box, and also the General Assembly Objective First Framework link. I'll also include that within the link tomorrow, but it's also in the chat box for you to reference. But again, thanks everybody for joining us and taking time to chat. We hope that after this webinar, you'll be a little bit more clear about how to, you know, step into Pinterest and sorry, not Planoly, but of course Planoly and Instagram and help both platforms work for you. But
thanks so much, guys. We loved sharing today with you, and we're excited to dive into this more.
Yeah, and of course, we have a webinar every month, every last Tuesday of every month. So make sure to stay tuned for our webinar next month. We'll be announcing it in 2 weeks. So keep an eye out for that Instagram announcement and newsletter. Okay. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.